Welcome to the Global Goals Studio. Our panelists are Nancy Mahon of the Estée Lauder companies, Marissa Pagnani McGowan of PVH, and Antha Williams of Bloomberg Philanthropies.
Nancy, Estée Lauder has placed a great deal of emphasis on the need for cross-sector partnerships and collaboration. How important is it to maintain a constant dialogue with all of your stakeholders?
Incredibly important. The bottom line is if you do the math on any of the world's biggest problems, whether it be gender inequity, racial inequity, or climate justice, and the climate crisis we're experiencing, is we need all sectors at the table. And so I think the good news now is that businesses like us, who've been at the table for a very long time on climate justice and gender justice, are here ready looking for solutions. In particular, in the past, through our Viva Glam campaign, we partnered with mayors to reduce HIV infection. As we move forward, we would love to partner with mayors and with governors and with heads of state around deforestation, forestation, and climate solutions.
So I think it's fascinating. We're in the UN week and we're talking about the Sustainable Development Goals. And one of the things that the SDGs really give us, I think, is a common language. It gives us a way to talk across governments, companies, civil society, and we're actually working towards a common agenda, which seems obvious, but it really helps. And one of the examples we actually have is moving into new countries from a supply chain perspective is trying to think through what is the Sustainable Development Goal path or plan for that country, and how can we work together with that country to either create jobs or to protect waterways. It actually gives us a way to automatically connect on a range of topics that can feel overwhelming. But I just wanted to add that on Nancy's point about how you work together with different governments and really bring that together with the SDGs, because it's been an unlock for us.
That's a great point. Thanks so much.
I just want to add to your point about common language too, where I totally agree on just having the language around the global goals in terms of affordable and clean energy for all. And, to Nancy's point, you've used the language climate justice, and that's so critical going into the phases of work that confront us now with the COVID pandemic, with the economic recessions. We have to make sure that the benefits of strong climate action are experienced equitably, and especially paying attention to those who've been either on the front lines of climate impacts or historically left behind. And so a lot of the localities that we work with, for example, they're really thinking through, how can we make sure that when we're doing these transit upgrades, we're getting working people to their jobs faster? How can we make sure that energy savings are putting money back in the pocket of those that are hardest hit? So I really like your language around climate justice.
Marissa McGowan, talking of an agreed point of language and principle, PVH is a supporter of the corporate pledge to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. How would you explain to people, certainly in this country, but also around the world, what happens to us, never mind the economy, if global temperatures rise above that mark?
So I think the way I would explain that is probably through the lens of our value chain. So when we think about the beginning of making a fashion product, you start in a cotton field. So are you putting your cotton at risk because temperatures are changing, water is rising, hurricanes or monsoons are hitting? So you're actually taking your core basic resource and you're putting it at risk, and you're putting the livelihoods of those who work in that trade at risk. So you start there, you move through that value chain. When you think about distribution and logistics, how are you moving things around the world? What is the impact on, we signed a pledge to not look at new Arctic transit paths that are opening up because of sea level rise and ice melting. So as you move sort of through that value chain and you think about your consumer and how they're using your products, are they going to get the products because we don't have the natural resource? How are they moving around the world? And how are they enjoying or experiencing something that should be self-expression, that should be passion, that should be positive, if they're feeling like the climate is at risk? We also have a very large human supply chain, and about 1 million of those individuals in our supply chain. To Antha's point, as we think about climate justice, they're probably in the countries that are going to be the hardest hit. by the change in temperature. So there's our global workforce. So I think we really need to think about our consumer of tomorrow, our human resource to actually make the products that people and our consumers enjoy, the ability to get the natural resource that feeds that product's life stream, and really how we engage with our consumers. So I think there are a lot of potential negativities about a world above 1.5 degrees. That said, I know that the companies that I have the pleasure of being on this panel with and PVH and our brands are incredibly committed to science-based targets, which we've set, and really meeting that 1.5 degree threshold.
Climate experts might talk about 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees, and those numbers can seem really theoretical, but the difference between 2 degrees of warming and 1.5 degrees equals real human suffering. It's billions more people who are exposed to extreme weather events and drought. The difference between 1.5 and 2 degrees of warming is the difference between having coral reefs on this planet or not. And so each day that we don't take strong action to combat climate change, we're only making our own job harder, and we're only losing more of this precious world. So it's not just theoretical. It's not just numbers. It's real lives and the planet that this matters to.
All right, well, I have so many more questions to ask, but we have to end there, unfortunately. Nancy Mahon, Antha Williams, and Marissa Pagnani McGowan, thank you so much for joining us today on Global Goals Studio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay with us. You're watching the Global Goals Studio. We'll be right back.
This year, teachers are learning new ways to teach. Parents are learning to lesson plan. And young minds are learning a new normal. This year, we are all students. At Verizon, we're enabling the education that students deserve. With credentialed teacher training, free lesson plans for parents, and tech-enabled solutions for schools nationwide, it's Citizen Verizon in action, our plan for economic, environmental, and social advancement.